Prinsep, Prinscp, writes in the same book, Tibet, Tartary, and Mongolia, on page 171, quote, "The general expectation of the birth of a great prophet, redeemer, or savior, which is alluded to even by Tacitus as prevailing at the period when the founder of the Christian religion appeared, was, there can be no doubt, of Buddhist origin, and not all confined to the Jews, or based only on the prophecies of their scriptures. Wrote after Brahma or Sakya Muni is distinctly prophesied in the Pita Katayan and Atha-katha. Gut's work, cited in the appendix here, is by Sir Monier Williams, M-O-N-I-E-R. Sir Monier Williams, The Mystery of the Ages, 1887. Buddhism is the Christianity of the East, and as such, even in better conservation than is Christianity, the Buddhism of the West. Page 541, footnote. I Tsing, T-S-I-N-G, a record of the Buddhist religion practiced in India and the Malaya Archipelago, A.D. 671 to 695, translated by J. Takakusu, B.A., Ph.D., Oxford, Clarendon Press, 1896. On pages 223 and following, quote, "It is indeed curious to find the name of Messiah in a Buddhist work, though the name comes in quite accidentally. The book is called The New Catalogue of the Buddhist Books, compiled in the Chiang Yuan period, A.D. 785 to 804. In the new Japanese edition of the Chinese Buddhist books, Bodleian Library, Japan, 65 DD, page 73. This book is not in Nange's catalogue, Nanges apostrophe. Moreover, the Sankhayama of the Sakya and the monastery of Tachin, Syria, differ much in their customs, and their religious practices are entirely opposed to each other. King Ching, Adam, ought to hand down the teaching of Messiah, Mishicho, and Sakya Putiyiya Sramanas should propagate the sutras of the Buddha." Next work, The 19th Century, Volume 3, July to December, London, October 1894, British Museum, pages 59-39. On page 517, in an article by Max Müller under the heading "The Alleged Sojourn of Christ in India," and which he criticizes Nicholas Notovich, who went to Tibet and saw there some old record and manuscripts in the Buddhist Himis monastery, speaking of Jesus Christ having visited Tibet and Kashmir, and who on his return wrote a book in French, Vie inconnue de Jésus-Christ, Paris, 1894. Nicholas Notovich was by nationality a Russian, but M. Notovich, though he did not bring the manuscripts home, at all events saw them, and not pretending to know Tibetan, had the Tibetan text translated by an interpreter, and has published 70 pages of it in French in his Vie inconnue de Jésus-Christ. He was evidently, translated as Unknown Life of Jesus Christ. He was evidently prepared for the discovery of a life of Christ among the Buddhists. Similarities between Christianity and Buddhism have frequently been pointed out of late, and the idea that Christ was influenced by Buddhist doctrines has more than once been put forward by popular writers. The difficulty has hitherto been to discover any real historical channel through which Buddhism could have reached Palestine at the time of Christ. M. Notovich thinks that the manuscript which he found at Himis explains the matter in the simplest way. There is no doubt, as he says, a gap in the life of Christ, say from his 15th to his 29th year. During that very time, the new life of Christ found in Tibet asserts that Christ was in India, that he studied Sanskrit Pali, that he read the Vedas and Buddhist canon, and then returned through Persia to Palestine to preach the gospel. If we understand M. Notovich rightly, this life of Christ was taken down from the mouths of some Jewish merchants who came to India immediately after the crucifixion, page 237. It was written down in Pali, the sacred language of southern Buddhism. The scrolls were afterwards brought from India to Nepal and Maghada, Quere, Mazadhe, about 200 A.D., page 236, and from Nepal to Tibet, and are at present carefully preserved at Lhasa. Tibetan translations of the Pali text are found, he says, in various Buddhist monasteries, and among others at Himis. It is these Tibetan manuscripts which were translated at Himis for M. Notovich, while he was laid up in the monastery with a broken leg, and it is from these manuscripts that he has taken his new Life of Jesus Christ and published it in French with an account of his travels. This volume, which has already passed through several editions in French, is soon to be translated into English. Next work, by Dr. Hermann Oldenberg, Buddha, His Life, His Doctrine, His Order, translated from the German by William Hoey, H-O-E-Y, M.A., D.L.I.T., Doctor of Letters, Williams and Norgate, publishes, 1882. Page 142. On the occasion of a prophecy of Buddha's regarding Mitteya, the next Buddha, who will in the far future appear upon the earth, it is said, "He will be the leader of a band of disciples numbering hundreds of thousands, as I am now the leader of bands of disciples numbering hundreds." Kakanahisutsanta. Page 149, regarding the wife and child of Buddha, the chief passage is Mahawagga, I 54. Rahula is frequently mentioned in the Sutta text as Buddha's son, without any prominent role being ascribed to him among the circles of disciples by the ancient tradition. Page 103. Rahula is the name of Buddha's son. He, Buddha, says, "Rahula is born to me, a fetter has been forged for me." At footnote, page 103, in the name Rahula there seems to be an allusion to Raha, the sun and moon, subduing, darkening, the demon. Next work, by François Bernier, Travels in the Mogul Empire, Constable publishes, London, 1891. There are, however, many marks of Judaism to be found in this country. On entering the kingdom, after crossing the Pir Punchal mountains, the inhabitants in the frontier villages struck me as resembling Jews. Their countenances and manners, and that undescribable peculiarity which enables a traveller to distinguish the inhabitants of different nations, all seemed to belong to that ancient people. You are not to ascribe what I say to mere fancy, the Jewish appearance of these villagers having been remarked by our father, the Jesuit, and some other Europeans long before I visited Kashmir, page 930 to 932. Now, George Forster, Letters on a Journey from Bengal to England, Falder, publishes, F-A-U-L-D-E-R, London, 1808. On first seeing the Kashmirians in their own country, I imagined from their garb, the cast of their countenance, which was long and of a grave aspect, and the forms of their beard, that I had come among a nation of Jews. Volume 2, page 20. H.W. Bellews, B-E-L-L-E-W-S, C.S.I., Races of Afghanistan, Thacker, Spink and Company, 1884. The traditions of the people, Afghans, refer them to Syria as the country of their residence at the time they were carried away into captivity by Bukhtan-Nasar, in parentheses Nebuchadnezzar, and planted as colonists in different parts of Persia and Media. From these positions they emigrated eastward at some subsequent period into the mountainous country of Ghor, G-H-O-R, where they were called by the neighboring peoples Bani Afghan or Bani Israel, that is, children of Afghan and children of Israel. In corroboration of this, we have the testimony of the prophet Edris to the effect that the 10 tribes of Israel who were carried into captivity subsequently escaped and found refuge in the country of Arsareth, which is supposed to be identical with the Hazara country of the present day, and of which Ghor, G-H-O-R, forms a part. It is also stated in the Tabkati Nasiri that in the time of the native Shan Sabi dynasty there was a people called Bani Israel in that country, and that some of them were extensively